Come in, pull up a chair, turn up your volume. I have something important to tell you about me. There's a poem I love by Marianne Williamson called Our Deepest Fear. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same, is my favorite line. It took a really long time for me to put this episode together. It's so much easier to be the interviewer than the interviewee. How much should I share? What does the audience really want to know about me that would inspire them to watch the show? Why would anyone be interested in my journey? If I'm brutally honest with myself, the fear really comes from feeling vulnerable and exposed. There's a term that people use all the time, fake it till you make it. I've never really liked that term. Who wants to fake anything? I've always found that faking it until I made it never really worked well for me. I do improvise when needed, but I'm the type of person who wears my heart on my sleeve. This episode is about my journey in creating this show, Women in Color. After being gone for a decade, I moved back to Etobicoke, the community where I grew up, and I had never planned on coming back, so the experience was very bittersweet. The community had gone through a transformation, but being back was like being home. And in spite of the challenges I see and experience now, I realize that this is where my heart is. My anchor is my church and the people I grew up with, spent time with, and shared experiences with, both good and bad. So many places in this community shaped who I am today and who I want to be tomorrow. Both the killing of George Floyd and being stopped by the police terrified and empowered me. This is my community, the place that I felt the most safe when I was growing up, and I realized that I didn't want to feel afraid in my own community or in my own skin. As a 52-year-old Black woman, I'm resigned to this one truth. I have the right to live comfortably in my skin. We're all here for a purpose, and the most important journey is finding our God-given purpose and living it out in a way that serves others. Women in Color is one way. I'm trying to serve and just to live my life in a way that gives other women the platform to shine with purpose.
What led you to move back to the community where we grew up?
It's very hard when a marriage ends. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, and it's very painful, and it's very, it's hard. So, but after I felt I was ready to, be on my own and sort of figure out where I wanted to settle, I decided that the place that felt the most like home was Etobicoke. I went back to my church, and going back was reminded me that this was my anchor, that this community where I had been a little girl and I'd gone to school and I'd grown up and so many things had happened, it really felt like home. The community was very different. Um, there was more police. I saw more police, more homelessness, more individuals panhandling, more mental health issues. It kind of broke my heart to see that all that had happened. But it also was good to see that there's more diversity in terms of culture. Um, there were people living and owning homes in parts of our community that people of color couldn't get into before. So that was great to see. It was good to see that people are still thriving and people are still here.
But there is probably, for sure, a distinction between, you know, how you moved at that time when we were kids versus how you moved and interacted with your environment and how the environment, um, interacted with you now.
Hmm.
So from that point in time till now, then just identifying that that's when we were really trying to become comfortable in our own skin. Where are you now on that journey?
Getting back on my own. I had no idea that I was I was I was unprepared, put it this way, for how difficult it was going to be single again. When you're married, you have someone else who's helping with all those finance, with with all everything. But when you're back on your own, when you're living single again in Toronto, it was a shock. The cost of rent, just trying to find employment, like it was really really hard, believe it or not. And what what I learned is that I am the most comfortable in my skin now than I ever have been before. And it's because of those difficulties that I went through. It's because of that trial. It's because between 2015 and like right now, that was just so hard. And you were there with me. You know all that I went through. I feel like I am the most content with who I am right now. I'm 52. When I turned 50, I threw a big birthday party for myself, not because I'm so wonderful and I had to have a birthday party, but because I was just so grateful that, and I felt so grateful that I'd come through this whole process, that God had guided me and had led me, had kept me, had, you know, um, just helped me to get through this. And 50 felt like a triumph. I felt, yes, finally, I feel alive. I feel good. I feel um, excited about the future. Yes, it was sad that my marriage ended, but my gosh, I have a whole life ahead of me, and by the grace of God go I. That is the quote on my Facebook page, and it still resonates with me even now. By the grace of God go I. So every single day, I feel a little bit more comfortable, and a little bit more sure about who I am in my own skin. I feel like I have a second opportunity to start over. And life isn't done at 50. To me, life is just beginning for me, you know? So I am excited about whatever, I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about the plans that I'm trying to carve out. But yeah, being 50 and or 52, I keep saying 50, being 52 and coming through this journey and knowing myself a little bit better, it all feels right.
Everything before that was a dress rehearsal.
I wouldn't want to go through all of that again if I had a choice, but I wouldn't change it either because you don't know what you're made of until you go through some stuff. You don't know, what you're really made of. Your ability to survive, to thrive, to overcome. You just don't know what you've got in you until you go through some things. So that's why I wouldn't change it, because it made me realize what I was made of, and it made me realize that God's got me.
In episode one, you talked about being stalked by the police.
Yeah.
So, as opposed to just having you relay that experience to us, I'm going to ask you, what do you think you you brought out the most, or I'm sure you know how you would have responded years ago when we were first living in that community. And because you've gone through this transformation, what strengths, what differences in your personality have you now developed that you know attributed to how you were able to respond now?
It was Juneteenth. George Floyd had been killed just a few weeks before, I think. Um, and and my 52-year-old self was much more calm. even as I sat in the car, and even as that police officer exerted her power and had her hand kind of on her gun belt or her hip where her gun was, and let me know she had a body cam and just exerting a lot of power, and authority in a way that was quite intimidating. My 52-year-old self said, stay relaxed and stay calm. Because at the end of the day, um, I I'm very aware that of what how this could go bad. Um, I'm very aware of the environment and the conflict between police and people of color. I'm very aware of the power that's used. So my 52-year-old self said, just stay calm. I think that is what has been different than if it had happened to me when I was in my 20s or 30s.
So tell us something about yourself that few people know.
I won a trip to the Bahamas, all expenses paid.
I remember.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. I'm thinking about it now because because we're in quarantine and lockdown. So one thing that people didn't know about me, I won a trip to the Bahamas once.
But tell us something specifically about you.
I wear my heart on my sleeve. It's really hard for me to hide how I feel. It's written all over my face. And I used to hate that about myself. I used to hate that I couldn't, really hide my feelings or emotions, whether they were happy, sad, excited. I had no poker face. I wear my heart on my sleeve. That's something that a lot of people don't know about me, maybe, but it's also something that I've come to fully accept. It's okay to wear your heart on your sleeve. Um, it really is. It's just um, not okay to allow sometimes your heart to dominate and dictate everything. Learning how to manage disappointments better in order to be successful. That was a piece of advice that someone gave, and I thought that's exactly something to learn. That I need to learn to manage my disappointments better if I want to be successful, because we're always going to be disappointed, you know. But in order to be successful, you can't take everything to heart. And that kind of ties into wearing my heart on my sleeve.
What advice would you give to other women um, in color going through the same journey?
Don't ignore the people around you that want to help and that are there to help. So family and friends. I couldn't have done a lot of this without, I couldn't have done this by myself, and I don't want to ever give the impression that I did it all by myself. You and friends and other family members encouraging and supporting. So figure out who those people are. Who's your tribe? Who are the people um, that are there in your corner, and make sure that you access them. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be scared, but have the courage to just go through it. That's the advice I would give. Have the courage to go through it, and as you're going through it, you will learn some things about yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself either. I had to learn that as well. Like, give yourself the time that you need to stand up and then fall down, maybe, and then stand up again. But just up stand up and keep going through it. And most important, love the skin you're in. I've learned to love being a Black female more than any other time in my life. Growing up in Canada, you know, I had the same experiences as you did in school, Shurnette, with racism and prejudice, and being called names. I was always a chubby kid. I was called names by a lot of bullied because of that. Um, So learning now that at this age that I am absolutely okay. That's the advice I try to give my clients. That's the advice I would give any other woman going through this. You're going to be okay. Starting over is okay. Love the skin you're in, and really, really tap into the resources and the people that are there to help.
Can you share a favorite moment from each of the episodes of Women in Color, um, and what type of topics um, we can all expect for future episodes?
Favorite moments from episode one was definitely the end when you talked about sharing um, with Maddie about loving yourself, and you took her through that little exercise about loving herself. That was my absolute favorite because that's the whole point, right? We're here to serve. We're here to. I think we are all here to serve. I'm really big on that these days. Like we're all here to serve. We have something that we're supposed to be doing. Our lives are not just separate and apart. We are here to do good. Um, and so passing along that advice to her and seeing how much that has impacted her and how much she's changed and growing and loving her own skin, her own beautiful black skin. So that I loved. In episode two, I really loved the way that Debbie and Ella give that advice, talked about their daughters and talked about what they try to teach their children, what they try to instill in their girls about who they are as black women, to take up your space. That was my favorite line from that episode. Take up your space. I love the way Debbie said that. I love the way they communicate that to their girls. Take up your space. You have a right to be here in this school. You have a right to the education that you want. You have a right to the job you want. You have a right to thrive. So that was my favorite piece for episode two. For episode three, I just loved Nicole and Vanessa. They are brilliant and smart and confident, and they really communicated their roles as leaders in education so well. And I love the way they shared about racism and privilege and code switching and what that meant. And especially when Vanessa said, like, we need to stop as Black people thinking that we need to fit into something or fit into a space. You know, we need to now thrive. Let's stop trying to fit and adapt. Let's begin to learn how to just thrive. And to do that, you have to come to the table with a certain level of confidence that you belong. So that's what I loved about those two ladies. Like they seem to know that they belong where they are.
When we had the episode that talked about code switching, I never, it's something that I did subconsciously, not knowing that there was, an actual, um, it was a shared experience. I think I may have done it unsuccessfully, thinking that was the only one struggling with it. So when they were able to identify it for me, um, it it became it was more helpful to clarify that this is what I was doing, so I could be more strategic around it.
One of the things I really want to get talk about is poverty among Black women. I want to talk more about Black women in the workplace. I want to talk about. We want to bring to the table episodes that highlight. Um, the this whole. I came across recently this whole problem among the Black community, especially Black women, colorism. Light skinned Black women, dark skinned Black women, and the conflict that exists even in that. So we're hoping that the next few episodes, we're going to bring some of these stories, hopefully, to the table. Some of these individuals, people with experiences that can really encourage people that can talk about their journey, hopefully in a way that My whole point with the show was really to allow people to share their experiences, people of color, women of color, to empower, to encourage, to support. I believe that we are more alike than we are different. And so hopefully in the next few episodes that we bring to the table, the future episodes of Living in Color, you'll start to see more of those stories, more of those experiences shared. And hopefully, my goal, what I'm hoping is that more people will be encouraged and impacted and learn how to thrive just from, hearing some of these stories.
Thank you for this time to learn more about you, learn more about the show. I know I look forward to more dynamic episodes.
This platform, Women in Color, really is a way for me to try to give, to be a change maker a little bit, to give my little part to making things a lot better. I think these are absolutely phenomenal times, and they're really challenging times, but I think people of color, this is our time.